Hello and welcome to the Astrology Research Channel. I am Dr. Rajagopal. In this present series, we are going to deal with medical astrology. It's a subject of great interest to many people. It's also of great importance and useful to a large number of people, including the physicians. So let us get on with the presentation. The objective of this presentation is to give an introduction to the connection between the science of astrology and medicine, and to give an introduction to how diseases can be diagnosed using astrology. In the past, physicians used to work closely with astrologers to help finding out reasons for a patient's condition, as well as finding some suitable dates and times for preparation of medicines and administration of medicines. This video presentation is in no way intended to contradict the medical sciences, their methods of diagnosis, or the medicines administered by them. This presentation is only used to give an introduction to the science of astrology applied to medicine as in the ancient classical texts of astrology. This presentation is in three parts. In part 1, we will see the connection between the microcosm and the macrocosm, or the forces of nature and how they affect the human life. We also will see an introduction to how Ayurveda and Jyotisha, that is the science of medicine and the science of astrology, are connected with each other. In the second part, we deal in a little more detail about the Ayurvedic principles of health, about the three doshas or the three humors of the human body, how Ayurveda also considers the karma theory or the hereditary principles in the diagnosis and cure of diseases. The principle of karma theory applied to astrology, then the planetary positions, the rashis and the nakshatras by which a disease is determined. In the third part, we will discuss about various disease predictions according to some of the ancient classical astrological texts. And then I will present you some case studies where I have analyzed certain horoscopes and found out that the diseases had clinical correlation. Then we will talk about the remedies as prescribed in the Shastras for certain diseases. Now we will get on with the presentation. The first part of this presentation is astrology and Ayurveda, how medical sciences are connected with astrology. Historically, the science of astronomy and astrology were very closely related to each other. The initial study of movements of the planets, and specifically the sun and the moon, gave rise to the development of our time system and our calendars. While the astronomers concentrated more on the computational aspects of accurately finding the position of heavenly bodies, the astrologers also tried to look at some of the effects of these planetary positions on the happenings on Earth. Therefore, as the subjects developed, astronomy became a science of knowing the heavenly bodies as physical objects, whereas astrology developed into a subject where the heavenly bodies were life forces which influenced life on Earth. As the science progressed, in Europe, the subject of astronomy and astrology faced a lot of resistance from the church as it was against the religious principles to understand the heavenly bodies and use those information to predict the future or predict events on earth which the religion recognized as some sort of a divination against the will of God. Therefore, astrology and astronomy faced inquisition and fell from the position of sciences. This used to be called the Dark Ages in Europe. Subsequently, there was a revival of science, and astronomy grew into a branch of science in studying the cosmos and even the formation and creation of heavenly bodies. While astrology remained a subject of limited scholars who will try to relate heavenly happenings to earthly happenings. In India, astronomy and astrology went almost hand in hand. But subsequent to foreign invasions, the subject of astronomy had very little progress and the astrology only remained. We talked about the historical connection between astronomy and astrology. However, modern astronomy has developed much more than positional astronomy. That means finding the position of planets and other heavenly bodies, much more into investigation of the unknown things in the universe, including the possible origin and end of this universe. Therefore, modern astronomy uses a very large number of observational instruments. It uses various principles of particle physics and it uses very advanced computation techniques. Astrology, however, has remained where it was and restrict itself to the sphere of solar family members. And it uses only the stars along the ecliptic. The ecliptic meaning the path of the sun and the moon, what you see on the sky. It uses only computational methods, hardly any observatory tools to locate the position of the sun, moon, and other planets. Occasional correction, of course, is being used by observations. Johannes Kepler, the very famous German astrologer, who laid the foundation of mathematical astronomy, has brought out the connection between astrology and astronomy in these very famous quotations that you are seeing on the slide. He says, nature has given astrology as an adjunct and allied to astronomy, which definitely means that astronomy uses the knowledge that is gained by the astronomical sciences for the benefit of mankind. And the other quotation which says, Mother astronomy would surely have to suffer hunger if the daughter astrology did not earn her bread. Meaning that the astrology, the science evolved out of this science of astronomy, which is the daughter of astronomy, earns her bread, means makes a livelihood to people. Nothing exists or happens in the visible sky that is not sensed in some hidden manner by the faculties of earth and nature. Whatever happens in the sky has a reflection in earth, is his opinion, or in the nature around us, is his opinion. Naturally, it means that all the living beings on earth are affected by happenings in the outer space or in the universe. This idea has been developed into the science of medicine as well. As above, so below, and as within, so without, is how the saying goes. What it means is, whatever is experienced in the universe, in the outer sky, or in the macrocosm, has some reflection in the earth and its beings. And as within, so without expresses that what is happening within the body, within the living beings, has something to do with what is happening outside of it, without of it. So we say the macrocosm influences the microcosm as well. This is said as Pinda Brahmanda Nyaya, or the argument of Pinda and Brahmanda in the Ayurveda and astrological sciences in India. Pinda means the human body or the microcosm, and Brahmanda means the macrocosm or the cosmos. So whatever is happening in the Brahmanda, whatever has anything to do with the cosmos, has something to do with the Pinda as well. So in Tamil, there is a saying that Andathil irupadu Pindathilum undu, which says the same thing as what is experienced in the microcosm also is felt by the microcosm. Leaving out those so-called rationalists who don't believe in anything other than what they see with their eye. All the people in the world, irrespective of their religious beliefs or faiths, generally agree that there is some cosmic supreme force which is responsible or which is the cause of this universe and which sustains this universe. which ultimately dissolves this universe as well. In Hindu faith or in the Sanatana Dharma, these existence, creation and dissolution are called Srishti, Sthiti and Samhara. And we believe that there is an Ishvara who performs these works. Apart from this, there is also two functions which is performed by that Supreme Force, which is called Tirodhana and Anugraha, which means by his mercy, he keeps the well-being of the people, and by his power of obstruction or Tirodhana, he keeps some of the things invisible to human beings. This is generally referred to as the Aintodil or the Panchakritya of the Supreme Being. There have been many theories about the formation of this universe. Religions speak about different ways in which God created the earth or other cosmic bodies. There have been many philosophies logically reasoning how the universe came into being. There have been scientific discoveries or scientific hypotheses for finding out the creation of the universe. Without getting into any of these, we will limit our discussion to understanding the cosmic connection with the material bodies on earth. For that, we will use the fundamental elements that is required for our discussion only. The creation took place in certain fashion is what one of the Shruti says, the Taittiriya Upanishad. The Taittiriya Upanishad says, Tasmadva etatsmadatmana akasha sambhutaha akashat vayuhu vayoragnihi agnerapah adbhya prithvi prithivya oshadhayah oshadibhyonnam annahat purushah Sava esha purusho narasamayah. This means that the primordial Atma or the Brahman, he created space. From it came space. And from space came air. From air came fire. From fire came water. Water formed the earth. The earth gave rise to vegetation. Vegetation gave rise to food. Vegetation is food. And food raised the man. Man is indeed the product of the food he eats. Here we talk about the five fundamental elements: Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Up and Prithvi. These in English, when translated, we say air, space, air, fire, water, and earth. These are called the Panchabhutas. Here we see the representation of the five elements: Akasha, Vayu, Agni, up or water, and Prithvi. In the ancient Greek or Western philosophies, the element Akasha was not considered. They considered air, fire, water, and earth are the four elements. Sometimes Akasha has been in later works translated as ether, but Akasha is more appropriately translated as space or space or empty space. As we all know, there are five sensory perceptions for human beings or other living beings also. They are called hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell. The five sensory perceptions are associated with five of the Panchabhutas or five elements. These perceptions are called Tanmatras. So they are also five in number. So they are called Pancha Tanmatras. The element Akasha, the first of the Panchabhuta, has only sound as a perception. So it's called Shabda. So Akasha is considered to have Shabda only. Vayu or air has both sound and feel. You can feel it, the movement of Vayu, as well as the movement of the Vayu can be heard. Fire has both. Fire has sound, feel, and shape. You can see fire, touch fire, and feel the heat, of course. And fire has a shape which can be seen by the eye. Water has sound, feel, shape, and taste. Although science says pure water does not have any taste, but you can feel it by the organ of taste. Therefore, it is having taste. Earth has sound, feel, shape, taste, and smell. So you can see that the Panchabhutas, as we described in the Shruti, as progressively coming from Akasha to air, air to fire, fire to water, water to earth, they keep on adding one perception more or one quality of perception more than the previous one, starting from Akasha. So there are five tanmatras or sensory perceptions which are associated with five of the Panchabhuta elements, and these are going to be associated with the five organs of perception in the human body. And that is how the organs of the human body, the five human bodies, are connected with the five fundamental elements of the universal creation. The Indian philosophy systems identify three characteristics of human behavior or human nature. The three characteristics are called gunas, and they are termed as sattva, rajas, and tamas in Sanskrit language, which can be translated as serene or calm, active, and lazy. That means sattva is a calm and serene state of the mind and the character. The character which is active, always tending to be active and energetic, is called rajas. And then the character which is lazy or wants to rest is called tamas. These three gunas are in a balance. The one supreme cosmic power or Ishvara does not have these three gunas. He is not having any of these qualities, but the qualities are in a very dormant and balanced state in him. Now, in the time of creation or in the time of other Panchakrityas, what we talked about earlier, the one supreme cosmic force tends to disturb these three gunas, by which entire creation takes place and sustains. This, you can see that the three gunas are either one of them is prevalent or they are balanced in many types of people. So the strange fact of this creation is that there are millions of people on this earth, but they are all found to be different. Their characters are found to be different. Why? It is something like mixing three primary colors and making millions of colors. Now we say gunas make millions of different people, millions of different characters. The gunas also give rise to their internal functioning of their internal organs. We will talk about these gunas which are otherwise exhibited as humors in the later part of the presentation. Now we have seen that Akasha or space is not perceived by the eye. It has no shape, neither it has any smell or taste. It can only be perceived as a sound, and it can be perceived by a sound which is also not a very audible sound, like a sound coming a drum. Therefore, this perceived sound of the Akasha is normally an intelligible sound. However, by carefully meditating on it, one can perceive it as Om. Om or Om, which is mentioned in the Vedas as representing the Brahman. The Akasha Tattva is present everywhere. Without Akasha Tattva, nothing can sustain. Like for example, if you look to your friend, what do you see? You see a wall, or you see a window, or you see a tree, or you see something else. You see somebody sitting in front of you. How can you see him? Only when there is a space between your eye and the person or the object. And we fail to perceive the space between us and the object which is seen by us. Similarly, a sound comes from somewhere. We are listening to the sound. We are associating the sound with either a drum or a pipe or whatever. However, we fail to perceive the space through which the sound has traveled and reached us. Similarly, about smell also. So it's a element which is unknown or which is not really perceived by our external senses. However, it is present everywhere. The enlightened soul can perceive it as a sound and sometimes as an internal light, which is described in some literature. The enlightened beings who can perceive Akasha as eternal, as everywhere, as endless, as beginning and endless, they perceive something like the Parabrahma or Ishvara itself as Akasha. The Brahma Tattva, which is eternal and present everywhere, when Maya and Gunas are combined with it, it becomes or it is perceived as Ishvara or God, which is the basis of our creation. The eternal Brahma or eternal Ishvara produces all these worlds through the Tattva of Akasha. Because we have seen in the Taittiriya Mantra also that Atma, the eternal Atma, produced or created Akasha first. and then from there came all the Panchabhutas. Talking about Akasha Tattva again, just look at life. Can life sustain without Akasha? A seed needs a space inside and around it to sprout. Sarvajnana Agama, it says that the seed gains the germinating power by the space element within the earth, which is obviously the space in the earth, the space within the seed, and the space of the plant and the earth. These are all the need of the plant to sprout and grow. Plants have got internal space through which water is transmitted from the ground into the leaves, etc. The leaves have got space by which we know the transpiration and photosynthesis, etc. takes place. Human beings have got space inside the lungs for the prana to go in, for the life breath to be breathed in and out. If there is no space in the food left, if you stuff it with food, fully food, the food will not digest. So Akasha is the origin and the sustainer of life. So Akasha plays an important role in the human well-being as well as health. If you are finding this useful and enjoying this content, please don't forget to like it and add a comment. Thank you. We talked about the supreme power or Ishvara as the cause of all creations. The supreme cosmic power is present as energy or life in the fluid of human reproduction. We call it gamete or sperm. Air, water, and Agni Tattvas form together to make these fluids. The combination of the female reproductive fluid and the male reproductive fluid, or the egg and the sperm, forms the fetus, which then develops the Prithvi Tattva, that is flesh. So the flesh and the bones, etc., are containing the Prithvi Tattva. First, the Akasha Tattva of the Prapancha Shakti or the cosmic power has entered and gave rise to air, Agni, and water to form the fluids of creation or reproduction. And the fluids of reproduction combine together to form the Prithvi Tattva. Then food is supplied. Food is predominantly Prithvi Tattva and also having other Jala and Agni Tattvas. The body, which is primarily a Prithvi Tattva, is nurtured by the food. And the nurtured food gives rise to all the Panchabhuta Tattvas elements in the human body, and it grows into a child which is born. Now this fetus is given the gunas, and the guna which is having the Rajas Tattva only gives rise to the breathing and the ingestion of food and prana into the fetus. The three gunas are in some state of balance or imbalance in that body, which gives rise to three major elements or characteristics of the human body called Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. We'll talk about Vata, Pitta, Kapha later. The Siddhas or the enlightened seers who are having great extra-human powers by their yogic and other sadhanas have identified that the Panjabhuta elements of the human body are affected by four realms or four levels or aspects in the human existence. These four realms are called Akam, Akapuram, Puram, and Purapuram. These words are in Tamil because the literature which I referred uh, in about the Siddhas are in Tamil language. The Akam is actually inside, Akapuram is inside and outside, Puram is outside, Purapuram is outside and outside, or it can be called internal, internal, external, external, and external, external. So that means there is an internal individual realm. There is an individual and an internal realm and an external realm interface. There is an external realm and there is an external realm of the body and an external world which are interfaced. So these four together are forming the basis of how the human being transacts and carries out his life. In the context of diseases and health of a person, based on the Siddha system of medicine, the four realms what we talked about in the earlier slide refer to the different aspects of disease manifestation. Akam signifies the internal physiological and psychological processes happening inside the person. The working of the three characteristics of Vata, Pitta, Kapha and the Tattvas decide the emotional state of the person, and the emotional state of the person creates a balanced state or an unbalanced state which arises in the mind and reflected in the body. Therefore, the agam or the mind realm, plays an important role in balancing of the humors. The Agapuram interface, the internal external interface, says that the internal state of the mind and the body can be influenced by immediate external factors like diet or certain habits, good and bad habits, and any environmental triggers like rain or storm, etc. Therefore, the Agapuram realm in the context of health says that how a disease or a health can be formed by certain external factors and how much it influences the internal state of the person. The Puram or the immediate external environment also has an impact on the person's health. This actually does not enter the human body itself, but however, influence it from the external position itself. For example, a seasonal change causing some allergies to the people, or a geographical location making you feel cold and hot, certain social interactions. These are all external factors which affect the health of the person. And this Puram are external forces which has to be studied by a physician to understand how a disease manifests. The Purapuram has further wider influences, which can be distant and external factors, broader factors, social and political cultural impacts, celestial phenomena, planetary positions also come in the Purapuram realm of the health or disease manifestation. They have very subtle influence, but however, very firm influence on the person's health over a long time. The Hindu religion, or what is called Sanatana Dharma, identifies four primary objectives for a human being to lead his life correctly. These four objectives are called Purusharthas, and they are classified as Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Dharma means ethical behavior. Artha means acquisition of wealth. Kama means getting one's desires fulfilled. And moksha is the salvation or freedom from cycle of birth and death. This is the essential of Sanatana Dharma. A person has to conduct his life according to the laid down proper social principles to acquire wealth and fulfill his desires, through which his salvation is assured. For having this Purushartha, for conducting his life according to Dharma, he needs essentially a good health or a good functioning body. So our Dharma Shastras say that Sharira Madhyam Khalu Dharma Sadhanam. The body is fundamentally that instrument or tool for doing Dharma. Having said that, the body is essentially a required tool for attaining the Purusharthas as laid out in the scriptures. The scriptures also identified from very long back the signs of healing or the signs of disease-free living. The appendage to Atharvaveda called Ayurveda is one of the treatises of science of healing, and it has been adopted in Bharat for very long time. Since it is an appendage to the Vedas, some authors call Ayurveda as the fifth Veda. Ayurveda, since it has the basic foundation from Vedic times, it carries most of the Indian philosophies also in its basic principles. One of this is the Karma Siddhanta. The Karma Siddhanta says that a person will inherit his good and bad from many births which he has taken previously, and he will also carry it forward to the many births which he will take in future till his salvation is attained. Ayurveda, by following this Karma Siddhanta principle, identifies some of the diseases as effects of the past karmas of an individual or the past deeds he has committed in the previous births. Similarly, his inherited diseases also are a past part of his karma. Ayurveda mostly uses plants, herbs. It uses bhasma, called oxides of various gemstones, as medicines for healing. The term in Sanskrit used for medicine is aushadam. Aushada. Aushadam means what is derived from oshadhi. Oshadhi means plants and herbs. So the main source of Ayurvedic medicine are plants and herbs. Ayurveda also uses external application of herbal oils and specially specified baths for curing of diseases. Just as Ayurveda is an appendage to the Veda and that has been existing from a very long time, Jyotisha is also one of the 6 subsidiary parts called Vedanga. And the science of Jyotisha was developed during the Vedic periods for determination of appropriate times for conducting rituals. Therefore, Jyotisha has got another name called Kala Vidhana Shastram. Kala Vidhanam means determination of time. Kala Vidhana Shastram. How do you determine a time suitability, etc. is primarily done by knowing the movement of sun, moon and other planets. So we know that the movement of the sun has determined the length of the year. The movement of the sun determines the seasons. The movement of the moon determines the length of the month and the calendar. So the daily time, the month, the seasons, the year, all this has been determined, and the calendar what we know as today has evolved from the knowledge of the movement of the sun and the moon. The seasons, the day and night, etc. influence human life, we know. We know from a very normal day-to-day affair that in the daytime people like to stay awake and in the night they would like to go to sleep. Similarly, the summer months or the spring months are good for enjoyment on the outdoors. The monsoons or the winters are not good for outdoor activities. It affects the human activities. Monsoons help us to grow food. Winters grow some type of food. Some other type of crops are grown in summer. So there is a lot of influence on the earth, its activities and the activities of its inhabitants by the movement of the sun and the moon. This is how astrology has developed into finding out the relationship between human beings' behavior, their activities, and the connection of the planets and the sun and the moon to these. I have already mentioned in the beginning of this presentation that in the past, astrologers and physicians used to work closely together for the welfare of the human beings and the society. Just as Ayurveda or the scholars in Ayurveda believed in the Karma Siddhanta, Jyotisha also is founded on the basis of Karma Siddhanta. And Jyotisha believes that a person takes birth on a particular day and a time with certain planetary combinations because of his past birth only. This therefore leads to a correlation between the clinical history and his celestial history, so to say. And Jyotishis helped the physicians to understand somebody's health condition from his birth chart or the natal chart. Since Jyotisha is also closely associated with the Vedic rituals, Jyotisha also studies homa, dana, baths, etc., which will affect the human body and in turn the health. These are going to form part of our later parts of this presentation. To appreciate and understand the connection between Brahmanda and Pinda and how various external factors, including heavenly bodies, affect the affairs on earth, we must understand the concept of the presence of divinity in all sentient and non-sentient beings in this universe. Astrology as a science, although it has got many statistical and mathematical methods, it considers the planets and stars as divinities and not just masses with some gravitational force. They are some energy fields which radiate out the energies which affect the human life, or not even human life, everything on earth. I would like to close this part 1 of the presentation, by quoting one saying, one Upadesha from the great saint Arulprakaša Vallalar Ramalinga Swamigal, who lived in Tamil Nadu. Swamigal says that the Jnana Sabha, or the wisdom inside a human being, is the spiritual radiance, a light, a jyoti, that is prevalent entirely across the sky or the cosmos, and it shines brightly in every creature. The radiance that glows in every creature, the inner light of that radiance, is what we define as God. And that inner radiance moves when the devotee understands it. And the movement is like a dance. a happy dance, a joy, a dance of joy. And this is called the dance of Nadaraja or the dance of wisdom.